I'm Laura Mitchell, 35, a lieutenant at the Tacoma base. Birthdays aren't my thing, no fuss, no frills. But this one was different. My family threw a party at my parents' place, and my sister handed me a gift box, her smile too wide. I was about to open it when my commander, who'd stopped by, grabbed my arm. "Don't touch it," he said, his voice low. I froze. "What's going on?" I asked. He pointed at the label, Silverline Imports. It wasn't just a logo. It was trouble. 15 minutes later, military police swarmed the backyard, their boots heavy on the grass. My sister's face went pale, and my parents started whispering. I stood there, the box in my hands, heart pounding, wondering how a birthday gift could unravel my life. Something was wrong, and I was about to find out what. If you've ever had a family moment turn into a nightmare, drop your story in the comments. Hit subscribe to catch how this one ends. You won't believe what happened next. My commander, James Carter, was pacing by the patio table, his jaw tight. He motioned for me to leave. When we got home, he said, "Open it carefully," his voice steady but urgent. "But don't touch anything inside." I set the box on the kitchen counter, my fingers brushing the Silverline Imports label. It was too neat, too professional for a birthday gift. I peeled back the tape, revealing a stack of decorative vases, cheap, glossy knockoffs. My stomach twisted. I'd seen these before. Last month, I'd visited my sister's apartment in Seattle. Her living room was cluttered with boxes just like this one, all stamped with that same logo. She'd laughed it off, saying she was trying something new with her art business. I hadn't pushed, but now it hit me, this wasn't just a gift. It was a clue. James leaned over, his eyes narrowing at the vases. "Silverline Imports is under federal investigation," he said. "They're tied to fraudulent shipments, fake goods, shady deals. This box, it's evidence." My mind raced. Why would my sister give me something like this? I needed answers. I grabbed my phone and dialed my mom, Margaret Mitchell. She picked up on the second ring, her voice dripping with that overly sweet tone she used when she wanted to avoid trouble. "Laura, honey, is everything okay?" That was quite a scene at the party. I gripped the phone tighter. The gift from my sister. "What do you know about it?" I asked, keeping my tone even. She hesitated just a beat too long. "Oh, it's just a little something she thought you'd like," she said. You know how creative she is. Creative. That was one way to put it. I pressed harder. "Mom, this box has a logo from a company under investigation. Why is it in my hands?" Her laugh was forced, brittle. "You're overthinking, Laura. It's just a gift." But I wasn't buying it. That pause, that tone, it was the same one she used when my sister got into trouble before, when I was expected to clean up the mess. I hung up, my pulse hammering. James was watching me, his arms crossed. "What's the deal with your sister?" he asked. I didn't want to admit it, but the pieces were falling into place. My sister, Emily Mitchell, was always the free spirit, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Growing up, I was the responsible one, straight A student, military career, always fixing her mistakes. Like the time she borrowed my credit card for art supplies and racked up $2,000 in charges. I'd paid it off like always. But this felt bigger, darker. If she was tied to Silverline Imports, she wasn't just being reckless. She was playing with fire. I turned to James. "I need to know more about this company," I said. He nodded, pulling out his phone to text someone at the base. "I'll get you access to the investigation files," he said. "But Laura, if your sister's involved, this could get messy. For you, for your career." I knew he was right. As a lieutenant, any hint of scandal could derail my promotion. But I couldn't let this go. I had to know what Emily was hiding and why she'd dragged me into it. The vases were just the start. I needed hard proof, and Sophie Turner, my friend and a sergeant at the Tacoma base, was the one to help me find it. The next morning, I met her in the base's IT room, where she'd pulled some strings to access secure servers. "Let's dig into Silverline Imports." I said, my laptop open to a DoD database James had unlocked for me. Sophie's fingers flew across her keyboard, pulling up email threads tied to the company. Within an hour, we founded a bank account under my name, Lieutenant Laura Mitchell, linked to a contract for Silverline Imports to supply equipment to a military contractor. My name, my rank, my signature. Except I'd never signed anything. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just fraud. It was a Department of Defense matter, and my career was hanging by a thread. Sophie scrolled through the records, her face grim. This account was opened 3 months ago, she said. It's tied to a $500,000 loan for business expenses. The contract's got your name all over it, Laura. I stared at the screen, the forged signature staring back like a betrayal. Only one person could have done this, my sister Emily. She'd always been the free spirit chasing art dreams while I played the responsible one. But forging my name on a DoD contract worth $500,000. That was a new low even for her. If the Army thought I was involved, I could kiss my promotion goodbye, maybe even face a court-martial under the uniform code. I grabbed my phone and called Emily. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice light like nothing was wrong. "Hey Laura, what's up?" she said. I didn't bother with small talk. "There's a bank account in my name tied to Silverline Imports," I said, my tone flat. "A DoD contract with my signature for $500,000. Explain it." Her laugh was quick, too sharp. "You're joking, right? I don't know anything about that." "Must be a mix-up." "A mix-up." My grip tightened on the phone. "This isn't a game," I said. "My name's on a fake contract. This could ruin me." She went quiet, then snapped, "You're always so dramatic. Maybe someone stole your info. Don't pin this on me." She hung up before I could respond. Typical Emily, dodge, deflect, disappear. I was still fuming when my phone buzzed again. It was my mom, Margaret Mitchell. "Laura, we need to talk," she said, her voice soft but firm. I knew that tone. It was her fix this voice. "What's this about, Emily?" I asked, already bracing myself. "Your dad and I heard about your call," she said. "You're upsetting her, Laura. She's sensitive. Whatever this is, let it go. We're family." I clenched my jaw. "Mom, she used my name on a military contract. This could ruin me." She sighed like I was the problem. "You're strong, Laura. Emily's not. Don't tear this family apart over a mistake." My dad, Thomas Mitchell, got on the line. "She's right," he said. "Don't make this public. It'll hurt us all." I hung up my hands, shaking. They were doing it again, protecting Emily, expecting me to clean up her mess. Growing up, I'd covered for her bad grades, her missed rent, her borrowed credit card. But this wasn't a small favor. This was my name on a DoD fraud case worth $500,000. Sophie looked at me, her eyes steady. "What's your next move?" she asked. I took a deep breath. "We keep digging," I said. "I need every email, every transaction. If Emily's behind this, I'm not letting her hide." Sophie nodded, already pulling up more files. My parents wanted silence, but I wasn't their fixer anymore. I was done playing the good daughter. It was time to face my family with the truth. On Saturday, I drove to my parents' house in Seattle, a folder of printed emails and a forged contract tucked under my arm. Sophie had helped me pull the documents from the DoD database, and they were damning: a contract with Silverline Imports signed with my name, Lieutenant Laura Mitchell, for a fake equipment deal worth $500,000. My stomach churned as I parked outside the familiar craftsman-style house. This wasn't just about money. It was my career, my reputation on the line. If I didn't act, the Army might think I was complicit in a Department of Defense fraud case. I took a deep breath and walked inside, ready for a fight. My mom, Margaret Mitchell, greeted me at the door, her smile tight. "Laura, you didn't say you were coming?" she said, her voice edged with worry. My dad, Thomas Mitchell, was in the living room flipping through a newspaper. My sister Emily sat on the couch, her phone in hand, acting like nothing was wrong. I didn't waste time. I dropped the folder on the coffee table, the papers spilling out. "This contract has my name on it," I said, my voice steady. Signed for Silverline Imports to supply fake equipment to a military contractor worth $500,000. Explain it. Emily's eyes flicked to the papers, then back to her phone. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, her tone flippant. Sounds like a mistake. A mistake? My hands clenched. This isn't a mix-up, I said, pointing to the forged signature. My name, my rank on a DoD contract. This could get me court-martialed. My mom stepped forward, her hands clasped. Laura, calm down, she said. You're making a scene. Emily wouldn't do this. My dad set his paper down, his face stern. She's right, Laura. You're blowing this out of proportion. It's probably just a clerical error. I opened the folder, pulling out an email chain Sophie had found. This email sent from your account. Emily confirms the deal, I said. It's addressed to a contractor promising delivery of equipment that doesn't exist. My name's all over it. Emily's face paled, but she shrugged. Someone must have hacked me, she said, her voice sharp. Why are you always blaming me? I stared at her, the same excuse she'd used for every mess I'd cleaned up: her failed art shows, her unpaid bills. But this wasn't a bill I could pay off. This was my life. My mom's voice softened, that familiar fix, this tone. Laura, you're the strong one, she said. Emily's struggling. If this is a mistake, don't make it worse. We're family. My dad nodded. Think about our reputation, he said. If you take this to the authorities, it'll ruin us all. I felt the air leave the room. They were doing it again, closing ranks around Emily, expecting me to take the hit. Growing up, I'd been the one to fix her mistakes, to keep the peace. But this time, it wasn't just about family. It was about my integrity, my career. No, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. I'm not covering for her anymore. This contract could land me in front of a military board. I'm reporting it. Emily stood, her eyes flashing. You're so perfect, aren't you? She snapped. Always playing the hero. You'll destroy everything just to prove a point. My mom grabbed my arm. Laura, please, she said. We can fix this quietly. I pulled away, my resolve hardening. You want to protect her, fine, I said. But I'm protecting myself. I gathered the papers and walked out, their voices fading behind me. This wasn't over, but I was done playing their game. I called Sophie the next day and we got to work. In her office at the Tacoma base, we spread out every document we'd pulled from the DoD database. Sophie, with her knack for tech, traced IP logs from the email account tied to Silverline Imports. These emails came from a Seattle IP, she said, her voice steady. Same area as your parents' house. My jaw tightened. It wasn't a hacker like Emily claimed. It was her. We spent days cross-referencing transaction records. Sophie found a chain of emails between the fake account in my name and a shady contractor confirming delivery of non-existent equipment. The deal was worth $500,000 funneled through a bank account I'd never opened. Each piece of evidence felt like a nail in the coffin of my sister's lies. But it wasn't enough to just know the truth. I needed a legal case. James had connected me with Agent Brooks, a federal investigator working the Silverline Imports case for the DoD. He's expecting you, James said. Bring everything you've got. I met Brooks at a federal building in downtown Tacoma, a gray office that smelled of coffee and bureaucracy. Agent Brooks, a man in his 40s with a no-nonsense stare, shook my hand firmly. Lieutenant Mitchell, he said, your commander says you've got something on Silverline Imports. I handed him a binder, pages, meticulously organized IP logs, email threads, bank statements, and the forged contract with my name. This account was opened using my identity. I said, my voice calm but firm. I didn't sign this contract. My sister Emily did. Brooks flipped through the binder, his eyes scanning each page. This is solid, he said. The IP logs tie the emails to a specific location. We can work with this. I explained everything: Emily's history of dodging responsibility, the boxes in her apartment, her flippant denial when I confronted her. Brooks listened, jotting notes. If this checks out, he said, we're looking at federal charges, fraud, identity theft, maybe more, given the DoD angle. My stomach twisted. I wanted justice, but the thought of my sister facing prison hit hard. Still, I couldn't back down. "What's next?" I asked. Brooks leaned back. "We'll verify these documents and trace the funds. If your sister's behind this, she's in deep." "You did the right thing coming forward, Lieutenant." Back at the base, Sophie helped me finalize the report. We added timestamps from the email servers and cross-checked bank transactions to prove the account was active during Emily's art venture period. Every detail locked into place, building a case that even my parents couldn't dismiss. I thought about their pleas to keep it in the family, but this wasn't just about them anymore. My name was on a $500,000 scam, and the Army wouldn't care about family loyalty if they thought I was involved. Under the uniform code, any hint of complicity could mean a court-martial. I wasn't risking that. By the end of the week, I sent Brooks the final report, a digital copy backed up on a secure drive. He called to confirm receipt. "We're moving forward," he said. "This could take down Silverline Imports and anyone tied to it." I nodded, my resolve firm. Emily had made her choices, and I'd made mine. I wasn't the family fixer anymore. I was a lieutenant protecting my future. 2 months after handing Brooks the evidence, I stood in a courtroom in Tacoma, ready to face the truth. The federal courthouse was cold, its wooden benches packed with lawyers and onlookers. I adjusted my uniform, the weight of my lieutenant's bars grounding me. Today wasn't just about clearing my name, it was about holding my sister accountable for a $500,000 fraud that had nearly destroyed my career. The judge called the case, and I took the stand. My heart steady, despite the eyes on me. Agent Brooks sat in the front row, his nod giving me strength. I was here to end this, no matter how much it hurt. The prosecutor laid out the case against Silverline Imports, detailing the fake equipment deal tied to the Department of Defense. My name, Lieutenant Laura Mitchell, had been forged on a contract worth $500,000, a scheme to funnel money through a sham company. I testified about the evidence. Sophie and I had uncovered IP logs tracing emails to my parents' neighborhood bank statements, showing funds moving through an account I never opened, and emails confirming the deal from an account linked to my sister. I had no knowledge of this contract, I said, my voice clear. My identity was used without my consent. Emily sat at the defendant's table, her face pale, her usual confidence gone. When her lawyer called her to testify, she stood, her hands fidgeting. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, her voice cracking. "I needed money for my art business. I used Laura's name because I thought it would help get the deal through." The courtroom went quiet. My chest tightened, not from anger but from the sting of her admission. She'd known exactly what she was doing, risking my career for her own gain. The judge's gavel hit, and Emily was sentenced to 2 years of probation and community service. No prison, but her record was stained, her art dreams tainted. My parents, Margaret and Thomas Mitchell, were in the gallery, their faces drawn. The prosecutor revealed they were under investigation for attempting to conceal Emily's actions, based on my testimony about their pressure to keep it in the family. No charges had been filed yet, but the scrutiny was enough to crack their perfect family image. My mom's eyes met mine, pleading, but I looked away. They'd chosen Emily over me, over justice, and now they faced the fallout. The judge cleared me of any wrongdoing, confirming my name was clean with the Army. My promotion was safe, my career intact. But as I left the stand, I felt no triumph, just a hollow ache. Outside the courthouse, Sophie waited for me, her uniform crisp. "You did it," she said, her voice soft. "You're free." I nodded, but the weight of my family's betrayal lingered. My parents had sent texts begging me to reconsider, to fix this for Emily's sake. But I was done being their scapegoat. The courtroom had given me justice, but it couldn't mend what was broken between us. Emily's actions had torn our family apart, and my parents' silence had sealed the rift. I walked away, ready to move forward, even if it meant leaving them behind. After the courtroom, I walked away from my family for good. It was time to rebuild my life. The weeks following the trial were quiet but not peaceful. My phone buzzed with texts from my mom, Margaret Mitchell, and my dad, Thomas Mitchell, asking me to talk things out for Emily's sake. I didn't respond. My sister's actions forging my name on a $500,000 contract had cost me too much. Their pleas to keep it quiet had only deepened the wound. I deleted their messages, blocked their numbers, and focused on what I could control: my career at Joint Base Lewis McChord. Back at the base, I threw myself into work. My commander assigned me to lead a new logistics project, a chance to prove myself after months of scrutiny. The weight of my lieutenant's bars felt heavier now, a reminder of what I'd fought to protect. I spent long hours in the office coordinating supply chains and mentoring younger soldiers. Sophie was there as always, checking in during breaks. "You're doing okay," she said one day, handing me a coffee. "Better than okay." I smiled, grateful for her support. She'd been my rock through the investigation, never questioning my choice to pursue the truth. Cutting ties with my family wasn't easy. Growing up, I'd been the one to hold things together, covering for Emily's mistakes, smoothing over arguments. But this time, their betrayal was too deep. Emily never apologized, never acknowledged the risk she'd put me in. My parents' silence during the trial, their willingness to protect her over me, made it clear where their loyalties lay. I didn't hate them, but I couldn't keep carrying their baggage. Setting that boundary was painful, but it was also freeing. For the first time, I was choosing myself. As I settled into my routine, I started to see the lessons in it all. Standing up for the truth had saved my career, but it had also shown me my own strength. I'd spent years trying to please my family, thinking it was my duty. But duty doesn't mean sacrificing your integrity. The Army taught me that, and this ordeal carved it into my core. I learned to trust my instincts, to lean on friends like Sophie and James, and to walk away from people who couldn't respect my worth. Those lessons weren't just for me, they were for anyone facing their own battles. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you. Sharing this hasn't been easy, but your support means the world. If you've ever had to stand up for what's right, even when it hurts, I hope my journey resonates with you. Please hit that subscribe button. It helps me keep sharing stories like this. Let's keep pushing forward together.
The food's not for you. Just drink water. It was my father's 57th birthday. White tablecloths, imported wine, a giant cake with gold candles, 30 guests in polished outfits, laughing, drinking, eating. And me, standing near the back, holding a gift bag no one noticed, in a dress I'd second-guessed 3 times before walking out the door. I hadn't been invited. I found out through my uncle's Facebook post. But I showed up anyway because he's my father. I thought maybe it was just an oversight. Maybe I'd still be welcome. Instead, I got pointed at like a stranger interrupting a private dinner. I looked at my brother. He smirked into his champagne. My mother didn't even meet my eyes. A few people shifted awkwardly, like they could feel something cruel, but didn't want to be the one to call it out. So I smiled. Tight. Polite. Hollow. Then I walked to the table where I'd set my purse, pulled out my phone, and opened my travel app. The surprise I had planned: 3 non-refundable first-class tickets to Paris. 1 for my dad. 1 for my mom. 1 for my brother. I had been saving for a year. Flights. Boutique hotel. Michelin-starred dinner. Eiffel Tower reservation. Everything. I canceled them all in under a minute. $18,750. Gone. Then I picked up my coat, left the gift bag on the floor, and walked out without a sound. No one followed me. No one called. And in that moment, on the steps outside that too-perfect rented venue, surrounded by music and muffled laughter, I finally understood. They didn't forget me. They left me out on purpose. My name is Lena Farrow. And from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because the day they told me to just drink water was the last time they ever got to sit at a table I built. You don't become the uninvited daughter overnight. It starts slowly in the small things. Like when my brother got a brand new car for graduating community college, and I got a generic card for finishing my MBA. Or when they forgot to tell me about family dinners. But somehow I was always the one expected to remember birthdays, send flowers, cover emergencies. I used to call it forgetfulness. Then I called it favoritism. Now I call it what it really is, a hierarchy. And I was never at the top. Growing up, my brother Jason could do no wrong. When he flunked out of his first college, my parents said he's finding himself. When I got straight A's, they said, don't get cocky. I was the serious one, the quiet one, the overachiever. I didn't ask for much, and they took that as an invitation to give me even less. At every holiday, Jason's name was first on the gift tags. Every conversation circled back to his problems, his girlfriends, his plans. If I spoke up, I was interrupting. If I stayed quiet, I was moody. Still, I kept trying. I showed up to birthdays with thoughtful gifts, even when I wasn't thanked. I helped plan my parents' anniversary trip last year. Paid for half of it too, even though Jason didn't contribute a cent. I called to check on my mom when she was sick, sent groceries when Dad threw out his back, offered to help Jason with his business pitch. All of it ignored, dismissed. But this trip to Paris? That was going to be my gesture, a peace offering, a way to say, despite everything, I still care. 3 tickets, first class, a hotel in Le Marais. I even booked a walking tour of the Louvre because my dad once said he'd like to see it before he dies. And still, I wasn't invited to his birthday. Not even a text. Just a table full of people and my father pointing at me like I was someone else's problem. The food's not for you. Just drink water. That wasn't a joke. That was the truth, finally said out loud. I wasn't one of them. Not really. Just the second-class daughter. The standby option. The one you remember when something needs fixing, never when something needs celebrating. So when I canceled those Paris tickets, I wasn't being petty. I was just done paying to be forgotten. The strangest part? No one noticed me leave. You'd think someone would have called out, followed me to the door, asked what I was doing, but I slipped out as easily as I had been ignored the entire evening. By the time I stepped into my car, the laughter inside had already resumed. I sat behind the wheel, breathing through a stillness that didn't feel like sadness. Not anymore. It felt like clarity. I opened the travel app again, just to double check. 3 round-trip, first-class flights to Paris. A 5-night stay at Hotel Le Pavillon de la Reine. Dinner reservations. Private Louvre tour. Eiffel Tower dinner cruise. The works. All scheduled for the next month as a surprise. It had taken me 12 months of careful saving. I took on freelance work. Skipped my own birthday plans. Chose this trip over replacing my aging laptop. Because I thought maybe if I did something big enough, beautiful enough, it would finally mean something to them. But there I was, sitting in the dark, hands cold on the screen, looking at reservations they never even knew they had, and canceling them all with 3 taps. Cancel trip? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. This action cannot be undone. Confirm. Done. I stared at the screen for a while after. $18,750. Non-refundable. Gone. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't feel the panic I thought I would. What I felt was free. For the first time, I wasn't working to earn their attention. I wasn't buying my way into affection that should have been mine all along. I wasn't trying to prove that I was good enough. I was just done. I deleted the trip from my calendar. Then I pulled out of the parking lot and drove to a small Thai place I liked. I ordered takeout, took it home, and ate it barefoot on my balcony with a blanket around my shoulders. No birthday music. No forced laughter. No cold glances. Just me and the city lights. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. Not yet. I didn't need to. Because silence, I've learned, is a language all its own. And in my family, silence only becomes loud when it comes from me. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my mom. Her tone was breezy. Hope you got home okay, sweetie. Sorry if Dad went a little overboard. You know how he gets with his jokes. Jokes. That's what they'd call it. A man publicly humiliating his daughter while passing a platter of roasted duck. I didn't call back. I just listened once, then deleted the message. No confrontation. No long-winded explanation. Let them wonder why the Paris trip never appeared. Why the itinerary I hinted at weeks earlier vanished without a word. Let them ask each other in confusion, frustration, maybe even guilt. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't giving answers to people who'd never earned the right to ask. It took 2 days for the confusion to start leaking through. First, my brother posted a cryptic status. Funny how people show their true colors when it matters. No tags, no details, but I knew it was about me. Then came the group text, the one I hadn't left yet. My mother sent a photo of my dad in a robe, sipping coffee with a forced grin. Birthday boy still glowing. The message felt like a cover-up, like they were trying to prove to someone, maybe themselves, that nothing was wrong. But something was. I could feel it, and by the 3rd day the cracks showed. Jason texted me directly. Hey, weird question. Did you book something for Dad? He keeps checking his email like he's waiting for tickets or something. I stared at the screen for a moment, then locked my phone and didn't reply. That was the beauty of this entire moment. They had no idea what they'd lost. Not fully. They only had pieces. Hints. Gut feelings. That quiet panic when something you've come to expect suddenly doesn't show up. The Paris trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a power shift. It was the moment I realized I didn't have to scream to be heard. I just had to stop giving. And silence is a powerful teacher. My father finally called me himself 5 days after the party. Voicemail. Lena, if there was something you were planning and it fell through, that's okay. But next time, just tell us. We can help cover the costs. Cover the costs? He really thought this was about money. As if I'd canceled a gift because I couldn't afford it. As if this was a mistake I needed help fixing. As if he hadn't stood in front of a full room and told me I wasn't welcome at his table. I didn't call back. They tried once more. This time, an email from my mother. Long, wordy, rambling about misunderstandings and family tension, and how everyone says things they don't mean. She ended it with, "It would be a shame to let one moment erase all the good we've shared. Let's move forward together." Together. That word used to mean something to me. Now it sounded like a leash. They weren't reaching out to repair anything. They were reaching out to reclaim control. To rewrite the story before anyone outside the family could see the truth. But I didn't reply to that either. Instead, I got coffee with a friend, laughed through an entire brunch, and scheduled a solo trip to Lisbon just because I could. Because I wasn't the girl waiting to be noticed anymore. I was the woman who walked out, quietly, deliberately, and let the silence tell the story for me. After the email, I blocked them. Not out of anger, out of necessity. Because I knew how this would go. They'd call it a misunderstanding. They'd downplay it, twist the story. They always did. And if I left even the smallest door open, they'd wedge themselves back in with guilt and expectations. So I closed the door, locked it, walked away. That was the last time I heard from them for nearly a year. And in that silence, everything changed. My business took off. The brand I built quietly on weekends and lunch breaks finally exploded. One of my social media campaigns went viral. I got featured in a business podcast, then a lifestyle magazine, then another. Clients came pouring in. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. I moved into a new apartment, bright, full of windows and air and freedom. I hung plants. I hosted dinners. I invited people who didn't make me shrink. And not once, not for a second, did I miss the people who made me feel like furniture in my own family. Meanwhile, word started getting back to me. Not directly, just in snippets, the way news travels when people want you to know something without saying it. Jason's startup failed. Investors pulled out. He had to move back in with my parents. My dad's business took a hit. A bad contract, some unexpected taxes. I never got the full story, but I heard enough to know things weren't smooth. My mom? Apparently she started attending church more often. Looking for peace, someone said. It was almost poetic. The people who told me I was too cold, too distant, too hard, suddenly facing the chill of a room without me in it. And I didn't gloat. I didn't laugh or post cryptic messages or throw their silence back at them. I just kept living. Because I wasn't punishing them. I was protecting myself. There's a difference. People think going no contact is cruel. But what's cruel is spending your life begging people to treat you like you matter and calling that family. What's cruel is showing up year after year with gifts and effort and grace, and being met with empty chairs and full plates you're told not to touch. I didn't walk away to hurt them. I walked away because they were hurting me quietly, constantly, and pretending it was love. And once I gave myself space, I saw it clearly. They needed me, not because they loved me, but because I held the emotional structure together. I planned the calls, sent the cards, bought the gifts, bridged the gaps between arguments. I was the glue, but glue gets tired too. And when it stops holding everything together, things start to fall apart. That year, the quiet one, was the year I finally became whole. Not because they changed, but because I stopped waiting for them to. It came out of nowhere. A single text. No context. No preface. Just, "We've been thinking about you. Can we talk?" It was from my mother. 11 months and 2 weeks after that birthday. I stared at the screen for a full minute. She had always been the diplomat, the smoother over. She never raised her voice. She just raised her eyebrow. Disapproval in her world wasn't loud. It was subtle, icy. Growing up, she rarely said, "I love you." She said, "Be careful." She rarely said, "I'm proud of you." She said, "Don't overdo it." And now here she was, asking to reconnect like I hadn't spent most of my life auditioning for her affection. I didn't respond. A day later, Jason texted me too. "Hey, I know things got weird. I think we all miss you. Also, could use some advice on something." There it was, wrapped in sentiment, coded in half apology, the ask. Not surprising. My success had become hard to ignore. My face had been in a magazine recently. My brand was now collaborating with a global campaign. I had even spoken at a small business summit, a video of which had made its rounds on LinkedIn. Jason was probably drowning in pride-swallowing regret. And my father? No message from him directly. But I noticed a follow request from a new account. One of those obvious fake profiles that parents use when they think they're being subtle. I didn't accept, because I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Their silence hadn't changed me. My own had. In that year, I'd unlearned the way I bent to be palatable. I stopped asking what I could do better. I stopped rearranging myself to fit a table that was never built for me in the first place. I started saying no. No to emotional labor disguised as obligation. No to guilt parading as love. No to being the family's backup plan, crisis manager, and uncredited cheerleader. I poured into friendships that gave back. I worked with clients who respected my time. I said yes to joy, rest, laughter that didn't come with consequences. That growth was quiet, but it was loud inside me. So when they reached out hoping for a reunion, what they didn't realize was this. There was no one left to bring back. I hadn't just moved on. I had evolved. And the version of me that once would have cried at those messages, typed 3 drafts of a reply, asked friends what I should say, she was gone, replaced by someone who didn't flinch at silence, who didn't mistake a text for a lifeline. Still, I waited a few days before I responded. I let the calm settle in, let the old ache rise, then pass. And when I finally opened the message thread again, I typed 3 words. "Sorry, wrong number," and sent it. No emoji, no follow-up, no explanation. I deleted the thread, blocked the number, and went on with my day. Not triumphant, not bitter, just full, because healing isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a quiet certainty that you'll never again let someone pull you back into the version of yourself you had to break to survive. I didn't expect a reaction. "Sorry, wrong number." 3 words, sent without fanfare. I didn't need a mic drop. I didn't want applause. I wanted peace, and that's exactly what I gave myself. Still, the fallout came. Mia, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in months, messaged me the next day. "Did you really say that to your mom?" I didn't answer, but I knew what that meant. The story was circling. Not the real one, of course. Not the version where I was humiliated in front of 30 people. Not the version where I quietly canceled a luxury trip because I realized I was just a placeholder daughter. No, I'm sure their version sounded softer. Blurred. Convenient. She's been distant. She misunderstood. She's cold. I've heard it all before. But this time, something was different. They couldn't control the narrative, because I didn't come running back. I didn't fight for my place. I didn't defend myself or explain or offer them a script to revise. I gave them nothing. And in the vacuum of that nothing, they were left with the truth. They had lost me. Not temporarily. Not emotionally. Fully. Jason tried one more time. Through a different number. We're family. You don't just throw that away. I read it while sipping tea in a bookstore cafe, sun hitting my face, laughter bubbling from a table nearby. A friend across from me slid a new book into my hand. You'll love this one, she said. And I realized in that exact moment how much I didn't miss them. The way they made me question myself. The constant feeling of being not quite enough. The way my wins were brushed aside and my help taken for granted. Family doesn't mean proximity. It means protection. It means celebration and correction, not humiliation and expectation. I didn't throw them away. They let me rot on the shelf for years and only noticed when they wanted the benefits again. They didn't miss me. They missed what I used to do for them. And once I stopped doing those things, they called it distance. I call it healing. So I didn't reply to Jason either. Instead, I turned off my phone. I finished my tea. And I let myself sink into the safety of my own boundaries. Walls I had spent years learning to build. Not to keep love out, but to keep myself in. Later that evening, I journaled the moment down. Closure is not a conversation. Sometimes it's a door you close gently and walk away from without waiting for a knock. That text, sorry, wrong number, wasn't just a clapback. It was a declaration that I was no longer available for guilt, no longer reachable by manipulation, no longer interested in proving my worth to people who only saw it when it was convenient. In the weeks that followed, I didn't hear from them again. No more texts, no more emails, just quiet, but not like the quiet I used to dread. This silence was sacred, mine. I filled it with music, with dinners that ended in laughter instead of tension, with clients who sent thank you notes and friends who hugged with both arms. I filled it with freedom, because when I said sorry, wrong number, what I really meant was, you're not calling who you think I am. That girl, the one who kept trying, doesn't live here anymore. A year to the day after my father told me to just drink water, I hosted a dinner party. Not out of spite, not as a performance, but as a celebration of peace, of growth, of my own damn table. It was small, 8 people tops, my closest friends, a few colleagues who had become chosen family. No formal invites, just real connection. Warmth that didn't need RSVP cards to feel official. I cooked everything myself. Roasted chicken, lemon potatoes, a simple pasta with garlic and oil. I opened a wine I'd been saving, lit the candles I used to say were just for guests, and played a playlist of quiet soul music that made the space feel alive. Everyone brought something, a pie, fresh bread, wildflowers in a jar. But no one brought expectations. No one asked for anything but presence. When we sat down, I noticed something I hadn't expected. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't trying to keep anyone happy. I wasn't scanning faces for disapproval. I wasn't hoping to be enough. I just was. Halfway through dinner, my friend Kara raised her glass. To Lena, she said, smiling across the table. For building the kind of life most people are too scared to even imagine. And for making space at her table, not just with chairs, but with heart. Everyone clinked glasses. Someone joked about how my roasted potatoes could start a religion. Laughter spilled into the corners of the room. And I realized this was the dinner I had always wanted. Not the Paris trip. Not the big gestures or expensive gifts. Just to sit at a table where I wasn't starving for acceptance. To feed and be fed emotionally, spiritually wholly. After everyone left, I stood in the quiet for a while, barefoot, glass in hand. I thought about the last year, the silence, the rebuilding, the hard, invisible work of unlearning the idea that love had to be earned with sacrifice. I thought about my parents, about Jason, and for once it didn't sting. It didn't even register as loss, because what I thought I was missing was something I never had in the first place. A seat doesn't mean belonging. Blood doesn't mean home. Sometimes you have to leave the room entirely to understand you were never supposed to shrink to fit inside it. I looked down at the table, empty plates, crumbs, lipstick on glasses, and smiled. I used to beg for a place at theirs. Now, I set my own, and no one here would ever be told to just drink water. They'd be offered seconds, and laughter, and a safe place to speak freely, because that's what I built. That's who I became. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about remembering who I was before they taught me to question it. I didn't need their table. I needed to know I was always worthy of my own. And I built one with love, resilience, and boundaries that don't bend just because someone shows up late with an apology. I blew out the candles, washed the last glass, and went to bed knowing something I wished I'd learned years earlier. I wasn't too much. I wasn't hard to love. I was just in the wrong room. Not by text. Not even one of those lazy family group messages with glittery gifs and fake cheer. But I found out anyway because my aunt posted the save the date on Facebook. Can't wait to celebrate Evan and Kara. The big day's almost here. And just like that, I knew my brother was getting married, and I wasn't invited. I didn't react right away. I didn't scream or cry or call anyone to ask why. I just sat on the edge of my bed, holding my phone, reading every comment like it was some riddle I was supposed to solve. I waited 2 days before I asked. It was my mom who picked up. I kept it simple. I saw the post. Is it true? She didn't even hesitate. Yes, sweetie. It's a small wedding. Just the people who make the couple feel at peace. That last word, peace, it tasted like poison coming out of her mouth. I said, so I make Evan feel what exactly? She laughed, soft, low, condescending. The kind of laugh I'd heard since I was 13 and too dramatic for crying when my brother trashed my sketchbook. You know how it is, Isla. You're intense. You take up space. Evan just wanted it to be easy. I bit the inside of my cheek. Hard. Got it, I said. You could have just told me. And then she said it, the part that cemented it. Honestly, Isla, it's better without you there. Like she meant it. Like she'd been waiting to say it. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Perfect, I said. I'll be in Greece that weekend anyway. A pause. Greece? Booked it just now. Well, that seems extreme. No, I said, calm as ever. What's extreme is raising a daughter and then pretending she's not part of your family when the cameras come out. I hung up. Didn't wait for her reply. Didn't give her a chance to backtrack. Instead, I opened my laptop and booked a solo trip to Santorini. Non-refundable. One way. My name is Isla James. And from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because the day they decided I didn't belong was the day I stopped asking for permission to be seen. It didn't start with the wedding. Being left out was just the final, polished version of something I'd lived with my whole life. I was always too much. Too loud when I was excited. Too sensitive when I cried. Too opinionated when I noticed what no one wanted to say out loud. And my brother? Evan was the golden one. The calm one. The center of the family. He could skip my birthday and still be praised for working hard. I'd forget to return a call and be guilt-tripped for a week. I showed up for him. Every time. When he broke his ankle during finals week. I cooked for him, tutored him, helped him pass his classes. When his last girlfriend cheated on him, I sat on the phone with him for 3 hours while he vented. When he lost his job, I helped edit his resume and referred him to my boss. But I was never the easy sibling. When I got promoted before him, it was don't rub it in. When I left an abusive relationship and went no contact for 6 months to rebuild my life, I was being dramatic. The worst part? I believed them. For years, I let myself believe that if I was just a little quieter, a little smaller, a little easier, they'd let me in fully. But every time I handed over a piece of myself, they asked for more. And when I finally stopped, when I started going to therapy, setting boundaries, saying, no, I won't cover for him this time, the cracks turned to walls. I wasn't family. I was friction. And friction doesn't make it onto the guest list. So no, the wedding wasn't the betrayal. The betrayal was the decades of rewrites. The years I was cast as the overreactor, the outsider, the difficult one, just because I dared to say, this hurts. And the wedding? That was just the moment they finally said it out loud. We like it better without you. Fine. I'd spent enough time trying to squeeze into a frame that never fit. I wasn't going to shrink myself one more time for the sake of a photo. Let them have their perfect little wedding. Let them keep their clean story. Because I wasn't going to be the background anymore. I was going to be in Greece, smiling in every picture. There was something liberating about packing a suitcase with no one else's expectations folded inside. No gifts to bring. No emotionally loaded dresses chosen for family harmony. No backup outfit in case someone made me feel like I didn't belong. Just me, a few sundresses, a camera, and silence. The flight to Greece wasn't spontaneous. It was intentional. I didn't want to sit home and sulk while they toasted to their picture-perfect life without me. I didn't want to scroll through filtered wedding stories, pretending I didn't care while my chest tightened. I wanted distance, real, physical distance. So I gave myself the gift they never could. Escape without explanation. I booked a small, whitewashed villa in Santorini with a view that stretched so far it made the past feel tiny. The morning I left, my mother texted me, "We'll miss you this weekend. Hope you find what you're looking for." I stared at it for a while, not because I was touched, but because she genuinely didn't understand that what I was looking for was already gone. Respect, belonging, safety. They'd stripped those away one quiet insult at a time, long before they removed my name from the wedding guest list. So I didn't respond. Instead, I zipped up my suitcase, turned off my phone, and held a ride to the airport. On the plane, I watched the sunrise. Not through a screen, not for a post, just watched it. For the first time in years, I wasn't dreading my phone buzzing with another passive-aggressive message or being guilt-tripped into fixing something I didn't break. I landed in Greece with no one waiting for me, and I felt lighter than I had in years. I wandered the narrow, blue-trimmed streets, barefoot in places, letting the island hold me without asking me to be anything but myself. One afternoon, I bought myself a gold ring from a market vendor. Nothing fancy, just something beautiful and whole, like I was finally learning to be. I posted a photo that night, just my hand on a balcony railing, ring glinting in the sun, wine glass in the background, and one caption. Turns out, peace looks better without permission. No names, no shade, just truth. Within minutes, the comments rolled in. Some from friends, some from family, and one from a name I hadn't seen in months, Cara, Evan's fiancé. Wow, you look radiant. Hope you're doing well, Yellowheart. I didn't respond, but I smiled, because somewhere someone was realizing. I wasn't sulking in a bedroom. I wasn't mourning an invitation that never came. I was living, and I wasn't going to ask them to notice anymore. I was just going to keep being impossible to ignore. Santorini didn't feel like revenge. It felt like reclamation. Every morning, I opened balcony doors and let the breeze rush in, warm, salty, gentle, the exact opposite of the house I grew up in. I didn't check the wedding countdown, didn't peek at guest lists. I wasn't avoiding it. I had simply outgrown it. Instead, I took photos. Not selfies. Photos of the sea spilling over white rooftops, of olive trees dancing in the wind, of myself occasionally smiling, yes, but not for anyone but me. I posted them quietly without hashtags or attention-seeking captions, but people noticed anyway. The comments started light. You look so peaceful. Living the dream. I thought you were going to Evan's wedding. That last one came from an old classmate, someone who didn't mean harm, just didn't know the script had changed. I didn't answer, but I could feel the questions multiplying back home, because while I was floating in the Aegean Sea, my absence was beginning to ripple across the picture-perfect wedding. I didn't plan it. I didn't need to. All I did was step out of the frame, and suddenly the image didn't hold the same weight. Mia, my cousin, texted me. They're acting weird. Everyone's asking where you are. Even Cara looks confused. Then another. Did you really go to Greece? I sent her a single photo. My feet in the sand, a white chapel in the distance, ocean behind it like a promise. She replied with a heart. No words, just understanding, because Mia had always seen me. Quietly, softly. She never defended me out loud, but she never laughed at their jokes either. I posted again the next night. A photo of my dinner table, just one plate, one wine glass, sunset dripping down the wall behind it. The caption? Some tables are better when you sit alone. That one hit differently. I didn't tag anyone, didn't even link it to the wedding. But within hours, my inbox was full. Family friends, co-workers, even Kara's maid of honor, someone I'd barely met once, messaged, "Wait, why aren't you at the wedding?" And that's when I realized something. They hadn't told people. They'd kept me out quietly, without explanation, as if I was the problem and their perfect image would hold without me. But now, their silence was cracking, because I wasn't hiding in shame. I was glowing in grease, and every photo I posted, every quiet joy I shared, made their story harder to tell. They could paint me as dramatic until I looked peaceful. They could call me selfish until I looked free. They could say I wasn't missed until people started asking where I was. And just like that, the girl they tried to erase became the headline they couldn't control. The wedding day came and went without a word from me, but the silence I left behind, that showed up on time and loud. I woke up late that morning, the Greek sun spilling across my bed. I had no alarms, no obligations, no outfit to approve or speech to rehearse. I pulled the curtains open and just stood there for a moment, barefoot on the cool tile floor, watching the white rooftops glow under the rising light. Back in California, the ceremony would be starting in a few hours. I poured myself a coffee, ate breakfast slowly, watched the sea shift colors like it was breathing with me. Then I opened my phone, not to check the wedding feed, but to post my own view. It was a short video, a pan across the bay, my hand reaching for my coffee cup, my toes dipped in a pool. The caption? Peace. No RSVP required. I didn't think much of it, but by noon, my cousin Mia had messaged me again. Okay, things are awkward. Everyone's asking where you are. Your name came up twice before appetizers even hit the table. Then, 30 minutes later, Kara's dad just asked Evan why his sister didn't show. His answer? She had other plans. I laughed out loud. He wasn't lying, but he didn't say why. And apparently no one else could explain it either, because they hadn't planned for that part. They thought I'd just disappear quietly. But instead, I'd become a question they didn't have an answer for. Back at the wedding, things weren't going according to script. Mia's updates kept coming in between photos of my fresh seafood lunch and a boat ride I hadn't even planned. People are confused. Aunt Teresa is trying to cover for it, but she doesn't even know the full story. Kara looks tense. Your mom's trying to act like nothing's wrong, but she's fidgeting like crazy. And then came the best one. Your post is going around the room. I swear I saw Evan clench his jaw. I didn't respond right away, just stared at the sea and let the breeze wrap around me like the softest no thank you I've ever given. The wedding went on without me, technically, but apparently my name hung in the air like fog. There was an empty chair at the family table that no one would claim. No one wanted to admit why it was there. That chair wasn't just empty. It was mine, and it echoed louder than a toast. Mia sent one more message at the end of the night. Everyone saying it felt off. Beautiful but cold. Like something important was missing. I smiled, because I wasn't missing. I was finally exactly where I belonged. The morning after the wedding, I hiked a cliffside trail that overlooked the sea. I didn't check my phone, didn't refresh any feeds, didn't scroll for glimpses of the ceremony I'd been erased from. I already knew what I needed to know. They noticed my absence. They just didn't know what to do with it. For years, I thought I was the broken piece in a perfect picture. I was the difficult one, the too emotional one, the why can't you just let it go one. But the truth had been clearer than I'd ever allowed myself to admit. I wasn't difficult. I was aware. I saw things they didn't want named. I called out behavior that was easier for them to pretend wasn't there. I remembered every time someone cried in silence and no one reached for them, and I dared to say, this isn't okay. They didn't exclude me from the wedding because I didn't belong. They excluded me because my presence disrupted the story they were trying to sell. A story where everything was fine, where our family was perfect, where no one had ever made anyone feel small, invisible, or replaceable. But you can't build a fantasy on top of someone who keeps telling the truth. That's why they needed me to shrink. That's why they wanted me quiet, malleable, grateful for scraps. I used to think they were uncomfortable with my feelings. Now I know they were uncomfortable with my clarity. And the moment I stopped asking to be included and started building a life outside of their script, that's when the whole thing started to collapse. Not because I attacked them, but because I took away the glue they never acknowledged. People like me, we hold families together in invisible ways. We smooth over arguments. We remember birthdays. We stay late to clean. We send the apology first, even when we're not wrong. And when we stop, the weight falls exactly where it always belonged. On them. That week in Greece, I wrote more than I had in years. In a small leather-bound journal I bought from a street vendor in Fyra, I wrote a letter to myself. You're not too much. You were just surrounded by people who wanted less of you than you deserved to give. And for the first time, I believed it. I believed I didn't need to be softer, quieter, smaller to earn space at the table. I just needed a new table. One where love wasn't conditional, where inclusion wasn't a prize, where silence wasn't required in exchange for belonging. I spent my final night in Greece watching the sun melt into the sea. No one called. No one apologized. And I didn't need them to, because I had finally given myself what they never could. Peace. The photos hit social media 3 days after the wedding. I didn't go looking for them. They just appeared, tagged by mutual friends, liked by distant relatives, framed in white filters and fake gold sparkle. Evan and Cara looked beautiful, perfectly posed, matching smiles, hands gently folded over each other like they'd never known conflict, never known anything but sunshine and yes. But their eyes told a different story, at least to me, because I know Evan. I know the way his jaw sets when he's nervous, the forced smile that only stretches the top half of his face, the way he pulls slightly away from people when he feels like something is missing. In every photo, he looked like he was holding something in, or maybe trying to hold something together. It wasn't me who said it first. It was Mia. She texted late that night, no greeting, just the words. You were the glue, you know. I stared at it for a moment, then responded, I know that now. She sent another. It felt hollow, pretty but hollow. That line stuck with me, because for all their effort, the catering, the florals, the $10,000 photographer, what they couldn't buy was energy, connection, the warmth that fills a room when everyone there actually wants to be. From what Mia told me, the day went off without a hitch, technically, but guests whispered. Aunt Teresa asked 3 people if I was running late. Cara's cousin pulled her aside and asked, wait, didn't Evan's sister help plan their engagement party? Why isn't she here? Apparently, my name came up more than the groom's father's speech. And no one had a clean answer. They tried. I'm sure of it. They probably blamed my mood swings, my sensitivity, maybe even hinted I was traveling. But no one bought it, because when people are used to you being everywhere, planning, pouring, holding space, your absence isn't invisible. It's glaring. And I didn't need to rub it in. I didn't need to post one last photo or send one last quote or throw back a clever jab. I had already said everything I needed to say by leaving. They were expecting rage. Instead, I gave them peace. And that peace made more noise than anything I could have screamed. That week, I printed one photo for my trip. It wasn't the flashiest one. Not the yacht, not the ruins, not the panoramic cliffside sunset. It was a simple shot. My bare feet in the sand, a glass of wine nearby, a closed book on my lap. Stillness. I bought a wooden frame for it, hung it right where the old family photo used to be. I didn't hate them. I just wasn't carrying them anymore. And in that stillness, something softened in me. Not the part that wanted to be included, but the part that finally understood why I never really was. I wasn't built to play a background role in a story I didn't write. And now, I had stopped auditioning. Somewhere along the way, I stopped checking for messages from them. It wasn't a decision. It was a shift, a subtle internal rewiring. I just no longer needed to know what they thought. I didn't need the apology, didn't need the explanation, didn't even need the justification for why they did what they did. Because I finally understood something no one had ever said to me directly. I wasn't the problem. I was the mirror. I was the one who reflected everything they didn't want to face. Their favoritism, their cruelty, their silence. They could manage a dysfunctional family dynamic just fine, as long as everyone agreed to keep pretending. But I didn't. I asked questions. I named things. I didn't laugh at the jokes that weren't funny. I didn't play along with the gaslighting when someone tried to rewrite the past. And for that, I was branded difficult, hard to be around, uninvitable. Because if I was in the room, someone might have to face what they'd buried under years of fake smiles and bad toasts. They didn't want healing. They wanted harmony, even if it was built on silence. I used to think I had to earn my way back in. Be easier, be nicer, be smaller. But the truth is, I could have shrunk myself to nothing, and they still would have found a way to say I was too much. Because the problem wasn't me. It was that I saw them clearly and didn't flinch. And once you stop flinching, you stop fitting. So I made a life that doesn't require me to. A few months after the wedding, I hosted a dinner at my apartment. Not a party, just a gathering. 6 people. Mia came, of course. So did Jules, my old roommate, and Danny from work, who brings joy with her wherever she goes. A couple I met at the wine shop arrived late with homemade bread and 2 extra chairs. We sat around my small table and passed food like it was ceremony. There were no speeches, no performances, just laughter. Real, loose laughter, the kind that rises from the chest and doesn't care who's watching. At one point, Mia leaned over and said, this is what family feels like. And I nodded, because she was right. Family isn't who claims you when you're useful. It's who holds space for you even when you have nothing to offer but your full, imperfect self. I still think about that wedding sometimes. Not with sadness. Not even anger. Just awareness. They'll tell their version of it forever. How I chose to miss it. How I distanced myself. How I overreacted. That's fine. Let them have their story. Because I have mine. And mine is quieter but truer. Mine is about walking away from a table that only served guilt. Mine is about sitting alone in Greece and realizing I was never hard to love. I was just surrounded by people who didn't know how. Mine is about becoming a woman who no longer needs to be seen by the wrong people because she's finally seen by herself. So no, I wasn't the problem. I was the reminder of what they did, of what they ignored, of what they lost when they pushed me away. And now I'm the one who chooses where I go, who I hold, what I build. And I choose peace, the kind you don't have to beg for,